Hello, everyone, and welcome on to Branded, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and beyond the brand to give you the clarity and confidence to challenge the status quo and show the fuck up in your own life. I'm your host, Sarah Glenn, and I am super excited to bring you today's guest. This is Yanairi Santamaria, and I just met her recently at a women's retreat. Her story just is phenomenal, and I reached out and I knew that I needed to have her on the podcast to just share her experience. So let me tell you a little brief about Yanairi. She is a previvor. We'll dive in a little bit more on what that means. A mom, a wife, and an autoimmune warrior, and a life and relationship coach. So we've got a lot of really good things to touch on. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for welcoming me. It's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so first, take us behind the scenes of your journey and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So it's always one of those interesting things, right? When someone says, tell us about you, or like, who are you? And it's like, you have all of these titles, right? And so you try to prioritize, okay, well, which one do I lead with? Which one do I want to identify as? And so for me, this past year, I've really focused on not being tied to like a title per se, just because I have so much going on in my life, as we all do, right? We all wear so many hats. So a little about me is, I am BRCA positive, which is kind of what started this journey for me, right? Of like just discovery of my purpose, right? Because all throughout growing up, I've gone through so many things. And I mean, I can take it all the way back to when I was a child, but we would be here all day, girlfriend. So for me, what really, really was the pivotal moment for me was when I got those test results. And so for anyone who doesn't know, BRCA positive just means that you're at a very, very high risk chance of developing breast cancer, ovarian cancer. And then there's other things as well that they test for, right? Other types of percentages. I was very high for breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And I come from a family with a high amount of women who have battled breast cancer. So for me personally, my options were wait and see when it comes and take the fight, or do prophylactic surgery and do double mastectomies, total hysterectomy at 30 years old. So that's where it all began for me. And that was 7 years ago. And so I've been on this journey of just rediscovering my entire self and what God has really created me for, really has been in this last 7 years. Mm-hmm.
I mean, at 30 years old, to have to make that choice of removing parts of your identity that you've only really begun to like explore, you know what I mean? Like your sexuality, reproduction, all the things, like, and then to peel away those layers of identity or just womanhood, right? Because everybody places womanhood, assigns them to our breast and our reproductive organs. And it's like, there's so much more to a woman than those parts of the body. And that for me was one of the aspects of your speech at the women's retreat that we were at that really captured me the most was how you went through this journey and, of course, had the ups and the downs through all of it, as anybody would, but you chose to make it into a purposeful life and you've touched so many lives since then by having gone through that journey. So that's whenever I said she's a previvor, that's what that means is she had to make that choice of being BRCA positive. And I mean, honestly, you never really know what you would do in that moment until you're in that moment. And then you're like, yeah, well, what do I wait? And do I do a fight through cancer, or do I just take care of it and get on with my life right now? So, man, kudos to you. That's a hard choice, especially at such a young age, 30 years old. I mean, gosh, I used to think 30 was old, and then I got to 30 and I'm like, what? I feel like I'm 18 still.
It's the new 20s.
Yes. Oh yeah. 40s are the new 20s for sure. So how did you, I'm assuming obviously through all of this, it obviously led into this beautiful life that you have now, but how did you find your passion for the life and relationship coaching?
So one, I mean, just going through that alone, it took my life, and it was, the carpet was like ripped from underneath my feet. And just having to really fall in love with myself again and my body, and um what that looks like for my children, right? Like them watching me, and how do I show up for myself? And there was a moment in time where I kind of lost myself. It was a really, really hard time to find the beauty within those scars, right? So it took a toll on my marriage, very heavily. And so my husband and I went through a really, really rough time all throughout healing, and um, going through surgeries and recovery. I also had my marriage almost crumbling and falling apart. And so it was like, how are all of these pieces in my life just completely shattering? And so for me, it was right then in that moment. Like, I've always been a God fearing woman, and my faith was always really, really strong, but it was nowhere near where I could have ever imagined. And I think it was in that moment where I realized God is really trying to wake me up. And he's trying to show me what he's created me for, and how do I show up for myself, for my children, for my family, for my marriage, because
Mhm.
when you go through something like that, you automatically think this is what's happening to me, right? It's this is my journey, it's my scars. I'm the one going through it. I'm the one broken. I'm the one, and it's like that's not the case, because just as much as I was scarred and recovering and healing, my children carried those scars. My children were healing with me. They were walking through that recovery. My husband was also scarred. He also had to, you know, honor, things that we said on right at the, when we're saying our I do's, it's like we're thinking
Yeah.
we're not gonna have to wipe each other until we're old. And he had to do that for me. You know what I mean? At
Mhm.
such a young age, you don't realize how much that really impacts all areas of a marriage, right? And
Yeah.
and so it was in that moment where just everything was falling apart for me, and I had to recenter myself on and come back to what's more important, and it was that firm foundation, right? So let's get
Yeah.
back to the foundation. And it was when my faith and my relationship with God got even stronger. And so my prayers got stronger, got deeper, and I just prayed, like, show me what it is that you are trying to reveal. And it literally came at me all at once, and it was, one, foundation is rocky, so it needs to get firm. He needs to first, the father first. And then how was I not showing up for my marriage because I was so consumed with my medical stuff, right?
Yeah.
So how do I show up and be that present, submissive wife? And I think that that's the problem people have, is they hear the word submissive and they're like, that's not for me. And I've always operated off of masculine, energy, because I'm such an independent person since a very young age, that was really hard for me. But I had to learn my place, right? And then also as a mother, and it was then that everything was birth. It was then that I was like, I need to embrace this new life, this new journey, and I need to release all of the things that I'm holding on to that are not serving me. And I need to use every dark season that I've walked through within these last 7 years and get it out there, because someone else needs to hear it and I can bless them. And so that's where it all shifted for me. And I'm like, I need to serve people and just share my
Yeah.
story. And that's where Embrace Release was birthed.
Ugh, I love that. And that really is so true, that some of the absolute most beautiful things that we will ever create in our life will come from the moments that break us the most.
100%.
I mean, it's like you see it historically, it happens in
Mhm.
every beautiful thing that you see that is created in this world. You look really deep down into the origins of it and you're like, this was created from trauma. This was created
Mhm.
from hurt, from pain, from all the things. But what makes it so beautiful and so fucking gorgeous is that it didn't break somebody. It was like the phoenix, right? It
Yeah.
became something new.
Yeah.
And you touched on a really good point too when you were speaking about how when you're going through these traumatic things and this healing process, it's not just you, it is
Mm-mm.
the people around you. So, whether you are married or not, it could be your parents, it could be your siblings, it could be your spouse. Like it's the
Mhm.
closest people around you are experiencing the same things. And so understanding that, yeah, I mean, you're not in this alone, and you can turn to them and be like, this sucks, right? And they're like,
Oh,
yes, let's
absolutely.
get through this.
Absolutely, it could definitely be a friend. I mean, I have a really good girlfriend of mine, and she had to call me out on my shit so many
Yeah.
times because not just was I, going through the phase of being a previvor, like I also got diagnosed in within these 7 years, I got diagnosed with lupus and fibromyalgia. So that was a whole other, valley that I had to walk through, and most people don't really understand like how lupus and fibromyalgia works because it's not a disease that you can physically see on someone, right? When
Yeah.
I have an active flare and I'm rashed out or whatever, yeah, you can see the rash, but for the most part, you can't tell. And a lot of times you get like, oh, but you don't look sick, and it's I can promise, like, yeah, I'll be there. We can plan a lunch date, and then I can wake up that day and literally feel pain from head to toe and not be able to move, and I would have to cancel, and and she would get frustrated, and because she couldn't understand, and we had to go and talk, and she's like, dude, like, you got to make time for people around you, like it and she kind
Mhm.
of understood, and was very compassionate as well. She was like, damn, I'm kind of a sucky ass friend too, because I wasn't even thinking of that. But that's where communication is, right? That's where
Yeah.
communication lies. Like, as long as you're just completely open and transparent with those you love, like, and show compassion and grace and mercy. I mean, because again, it's not just about us. It really
Mhm.
isn't, our loved ones have feelings too, and they want to be around us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not always about putting on a strong face and like, just sucking it up and dealing with it. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admitting that you don't feel well, that you need the help. And I meant to touch on that a moment ago whenever you said the word submissive. And I understand
Mhm.
whenever you said it, my brain went exactly where you thought it would go, right? Like, oh, I don't like that word. And that's
No.
how most people we allow words to have so much power over us. But when you really understand, like you had to train yourself essentially
Mhm.
to allow yourself to bring on this identity that isn't this hyper masculine that you're used to in order to be taken care of in a moment that you truly needed to be taken care of.
Mhm.
And it's not about being submissive all the time and, just constantly bending at everybody else's will and being a people pleaser, but it's about knowing that there's this harmony of life, that it's okay to be taken care of sometimes, even if you're highly independent and you
Yeah.
do everything yourself. Because I'm
Yeah.
very much like you in that way, very independent. I'm an only child. I had a rough childhood that, I great parents in some ways, but in other ways, I had to raise myself a lot.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I get to adulthood and I don't let anybody help me do anything. Well,
Right.
that's no good.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that balance is important.
Oh, yeah, my husband tells me all the time, he's like, you would ask for help, and then you would get mad because you wanna do it yourself because they can't do nobody can do it like you, and so then why ask for help if you're and I'm like, "Oh my god, that sounds so toxic." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why
And
am I doing this to myself?
it really is like the most toxic things that happen in our life usually come from us, right? The
Mhm,
self-sabotage, all of those kinds of things. It's crazy. I was just actually recording another podcast episode before this recording, and we were talking about like perfectionism
mhm,
and how it being a sabotage behavior, and a lot of people don't identify it as that. And I'm like, oh man, I went through over 30 years of my life being a perfectionist in one way or another and
mm,
using it as an excuse of like, oh, well, it's just not right yet,
yes,
instead of just taking action and like doing what needs to be done.
same.
How did you, so what part in your journey did you decide, like, I'm ready to write a book, which by the way, we'll make sure and link stuff in the show notes for you guys. But like, when was it that you decided, like, I need to get this on paper and kind of get the
Yeah,
message out a little bit broader?
I think it was, you know, one Victoria who is, an amazing sister for me. I've known her for 10 years, and she's the creator of the Power Her retreat, and um she's walked through those seasons with me. And she would just push me. And that's where, when they say like your circles, the circles you want to be in and the tribe that you want to attract, it's women like that. Women that see something in you even when you don't see it yourself, or maybe you do see it, but you're just so afraid to be vulnerable and really put yourself out there. Because let's be real, when you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to the opinions of other people. I mean, it just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like there was a lot of hesitation. There was a lot of, are people going to try and compare me to other people? Are people going to, tell me that I'm not qualified or, all the things, right? All of the things. And she was the one person that was like, no, you got to do it. You got to do it. I'm going to hold you accountable. And she would write me, did you do it? Have you written? Have you? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was like, okay, let me just really sit, pray, and like see exactly where this takes me. And I mean, it just happened. It happened. I trusted the process, and it's imperfectly perfect. Like I said at the retreat,
Mhm.
it was my first book ever, and again, like I'm not an English teacher. I've always gotten honor roll in school and things like that. Like I love school, I love education, I love learning, but I'm no English teacher. So I'm like,
Yeah, you're like, "I am not Shakespeare, so, like, I'm just gonna say
really?
this."
Yes, like there's gonna be some things that are off. And like I said at the retreat, I didn't notice until that day that even the top freaking title, the book title, like I completely missed that. But I think that that's where the beauty is that even in those mistakes, or not even mistakes, right? But like in those learning experiences, like it doesn't have to be perfect. And once you can let go of trying to make everything perfect, I think that even in those mishaps, right? Like it doesn't have the stupid book title at the damn top of the page. But everything in the book itself is so freaking dope because it's real. It's exactly what I went through. It's so if you get fixated on the flippin' book title and you completely miss the content, like the
Yeah.
context of everything else, like then the book is not really for you. And
Mhm.
and I think that that's kind of like how I navigate through life, right? Like my interactions and my connections with people, if you only focus on the minor things and you're missing all of the true value in our friendship or in our conversations or um like in anything that we're doing together, then
Right.
that's where boundaries come in.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
What you
yeah.
allow, what you don't allow. And so that's
Mm.
that's literally how this imperfectly perfect book came about.
Yeah. And I love that, and that's actually something that I wanted to touch on anyway, so it's perfect that you brought it up, but I was gonna ask you, like, if there was a moment that felt like a failure at some point that now whenever you look at it, you're like, "Well, that was 100% turned into an opportunity that then led to something successful." And that's a
Mhm.
great example where it's like, at the top of the page, it says, book title here, and
Yeah,
and you didn't put the book title, but, like, who
yeah,
cares? Nobody
yeah.
cares about that, right? Like, that's some aspect of, like, publishing that just became the norm, and it's like, why we don't need it there. We're reading the
Right,
book for the content within, not so we can make sure each page has the title at the top of it. We know what we're reading. Like,
right,
it's
and
in the
that's what
hand.
happens when you free publish too.
And
But
that's
that's
I think
okay.
that's
It's
amazing.
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I wanted to ask you actually, so prior to entrepreneurship, to life
Mhm.
relationship coaching, what were you doing before that?
Oh my goodness. So I worked for corporate America,
Mhm.
for over 10 years. Met some really incredible people who are still my dear friends to this day. Um, and it just wasn't fulfilling. Like I have my degree in criminal justice, but once I became a mom, that just completely, again, that just didn't align with what I was purpose for, and I knew it. And then, working for corporate America just so that you can pay the bills. I knew very early on, I am not meant to work a 9 to 5 for someone else. It's just not in my nature. Some people can do it. They're glad to do it. They wake up, they're excited about what they're doing. For me, I feel like if I'm going to work, it has to be purposeful work, meaningful work where I'm serving others and I can truly feel like I'm making a difference. Um, and I'm actually like I'm honoring God in that, right? Like I'm allowing myself to be used as a vessel.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, I have 2 huge passions, right? So I love life and relationship coaching, because I've gone through some shit, man, and
Yeah, you
there is
have.
light at the end of the tunnel, and for me, there's a really close friend of mine, she would always tell me, like, "Jada, you go through so much smoke and you walk through so much fire. You no, I'm sorry, you go through so much fire, you walk through so much fire, and you never come out smelling like smoke." And for
Mm,
me, that has always, like, been stuck in my head to where it's like, how many people walk through fires and you can see the smoke coming out of their body, and it's like, I just wanna be able to help them navigate and know that what they're going through is for a reason, and
yeah,
it's so hard to accept that when we're going through something so difficult that it's like, there's actually supposed to be beauty from ashes. Are you kidding me? But yes, yes, there
yes,
is. Um, and then the other side is real estate. Man, since 5 years old, I would go to open houses with my aunt, and I just have this extreme love for homes and interior design that, again, it just goes with who I am serving. So if
yeah,
I can place a family in a home where they're making beautiful memories, like, for me, that's so fulfilling. And then if I can walk someone through a dark period of their life, or their marriage or their relationship with family or whatever the case may be, like, again, it's it's a fulfillment that I receive that
mhm.
is unexplainable.
You know what? And it is unexplainable, but if you're like anybody who's watching this, because this will stream into Facebook and YouTube, I
Mhm.
can see it on your face. Like I
Oh,
can feel it emanating from you when you talk about the coaching and the real estate, like your energy just shifted because I can tell how passionately you feel about it. I feel the same way about my work. And I have people tell me before, they're like, when you started talking about that, you just freaking lit up. And I was like, it's just a, and it's hard to explain that
mhm.
feeling. It's like almost like your chest just like, it just can't contain it. Like it wants to explode and you just want to be so joyful. And
Mhm.
that's really one of the biggest messages that I have with this podcast is like I'm a corporate gal still, right? To this day. Like I still have a corporate job, but I'm allowing myself to express and explore the other sides of me that are like very loudly not going away anymore.
I
Like
love
I decided to let her in and now she's like, "We live here and this is awesome."
You're
But,
not getting me back in cage.
yeah. And that's like a message I wanna let women know, like, it's okay if you love your job, but you want something
Mhm.
else. And it's okay if you
Absolutely.
hate your job and you want something else. Like, there is possibility at every single turn.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's having these conversations is why it's so vital for me to not just be sharing my story, but sharing all these other stories of these women that have walked very similar paths to many of the people listening and be like, "Yeah, I was in corporate America and I felt this kind of way and I want to feel this other kind of way, but I don't know how to get there." And so it's like having these conversations is just it allows you to peek behind the curtain and see the possibility and
Mhm.
either step through or don't, right? It's
Right,
like up to you
right,
at that point.
right. Seriously.
Oh, man. Okay, so on that note, what is like the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Ooh,
I know we went
man,
like a little scale there, but
legacy. I think for me personally, it's and I can say my children, right? But realistically, and well, let me take it back. Let me take it back because I have my son who's 14 and I have my daughter who's 9. Um, and my son can take a lot. Like he can take away a lot from what he sees as far as like perseverance and never giving up and going after everything that you want in life. And he plays competitive basketball. And so I'm constantly letting him know that as well. Like no one can ever determine the outcome, only you can. So like there's things that I pour into him, my husband and I, right? So, um, but I think for me, my daughter is ah, she's my everything. Um, because she cheers me on like no one has ever cheered me on before. Um, and she lights up, like, when she sees what I'm doing and she's, "Mommy, I wanna go and see you speak. Mommy, I wanna do this. Mommy, I wanna write a book," And so I have, like, notes on my laptop of her, like, typing out, like, books and stuff, and so just seeing that that's being ignited within her, her love for God, right? Like, her love for God is it's crazy. The girl is 9 years old, and she can outpray anybody that I think I know in my circle. She is a prayer warrior, and it's like, she's watching my every step. So I
Mhm.
try to be very intentional with how I move because I know that, and she's like, when I'm 18, I'm going to get my license and you and I are going to do real estate together too. So she's already envisioning like all the ways that she's going to be my business partner.
Yeah,
And she pushes me and there's moments where I have, moments of weakness and I'm doubting or I'll say, "Man, I don't think I can do this. I don't feel like doing it." And she's like, "What are you talking about, Mom? You can do it. When are you going to do it?" And she pushes me. And so when I think of my legacy, I think about a little girl who will be on stages and for whatever it is that she decides to do, because she plays competitive basketball too, right? And whether it's being in that, playing for college or in her career, wherever God takes her in life, she will be able to come from a place that is full of resilience, it's full of perseverance. It's not from a place of trauma. It's from a place of knowing her worth, because I think that that is the most important thing. Us as women now, we didn't have this available to us. And I was talking to Natasha, who was actually at the Power Her retreat too. And it's like, can you imagine what girls like what they have now? Can you imagine if we had those resources when we were growing up? Like, oh my God. So
I
for
know,
me, when I
right?
think of legacy, I'm thinking about younger women. I'm thinking about my daughter and the little girls behind her, What am I going to be able to leave behind to where they will always be reminded of their worth. They will know that their worth doesn't come from social media. It doesn't come from Instagram. It doesn't come from OnlyFans and all this other bull crap, like their confidence and their worthiness and all of that comes from who they were created to be, and no one can take that away from them, right? And so I
Mm,
think legacy, I think I kind of went like
yes.
all over with it, but that's what I think of. I think of the little girl, the little me.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, what a perfect answer. Oh, so I mean, that it really, really is the thing. And I'm not even a mother, and those are things that I think about, the actions I'm taking, when you really pay attention to intentional actions and then
Mhm.
creating awareness around what those actions are creating, right? Good or bad, because it really is about neutrality. Like we place all the meaning
Mhm.
on the good or the bad stuff. So it's just what is the action you're taking with intention and then awareness around what then happens afterwards. What
Yeah.
what dominoes afterwards and is created because of it. And I think just having those two pieces of the puzzle can create huge legacies.
Oh yeah.
And you're so right. If we had access to the information and
Oh,
the awareness and the acceptance of like what is happening right now, if I had that as like a 10-year-old, man, I would have been
mhm.
like, I don't know. I don't know where I would have been, but obviously
Right.
there's never like, oh, I wish my life would have been different because
Yeah,
we
right.
grow,
Yeah,
we learn and it's all part of it.
absolutely.
But so true. I couldn't even
Mhm.
imagine what would be if that was the case. And that's what's so cool. You have the opportunity to witness it, to help
Mhm.
mold it, create it. And she's doing the same for you. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
right? She's
Oh,
just
yeah.
as much of a teacher as you are for her.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why
Everything.
kids are so cool, like that they do that.
And they
They're
have
so
this,
insightful.
like, the most insane honesty. Oh my gosh, do they keep it real? And I'm like, "Oh gosh, you just checked me," like and I can play the whole, like, "I'm your mama, you better not," but dude, she's
Yeah.
right. She half the not half, all the time, she's right, and it's like,
Yeah.
I gotta listen to this little girl, you know?
Well, I mean, the problem I think with that is, well, not problem, but like I think the reason that happens more frequently than we expect it to is because we have so many filters of conditioned beliefs that we sort of live inside of, right?
Mhm.
And kids don't have that yet. I mean, they have some of it, right? It's come from you, probably
Mhm.
whatever conditioning has
Yeah,
been,
yeah, yeah.
but there's a lot less. There's not necessarily societal conditioning in the same way. And so yeah,
Mm.
you perceive things in a way where she can cut right through to the answer, to the honesty, to the realness, and
Yes,
you're like, "Oh shit, she got me."
yes, she can. Yes, she can. And sometimes I'm like, "Oh my god, like, just go over there. Like, just go
Yeah.
over there. Let me be in my own little bubble right now." But, I mean, yeah,
Oh
she holds
man.
me accountable for sure, which is I mean, she's the reason why, and I'm not sure if you saw, but, I'm working on something really, really big for 2024, and it's gonna
Mm.
be a women's and young women's, retreat. So
Oh, that's so
it's gonna
beautiful.
be elevate her, and it's gonna be so that we can pour into these younger women along with women, and so
Yeah.
just to show them that because I think that there's this thing where it's like I can't talk to my mom or I can't talk to the older sister or I can't talk to I'm
Mhm.
going to be judged, and it's like, man, if we could just provide a safe space for these young girls who they're going through real life shit, man. Like
Yeah.
the last thing they need to be is judged. And so if we can provide a space where it's like we got you and we've lived through some stuff ourselves and we can help walk you through that process, um man, like I
Yeah.
get excited for the young women.
Man, and you're so good at this, by the way, because I was just about to ask you, what do you have coming up next? What's up next for you? And you were like, let's just go there. Because I mean, that's what's so cool about entrepreneurship is it's ever evolving, it's always growing into something else. And it's not about like constantly seeking achievement, but it's really more about embracing the fact that there is no end to the journey. The
Right.
journey is the destination. It is the
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that,
Yes. Yes.
you got to get in it and start enjoying it. And if you don't, then you pivot and you find something new. But yeah, I was just about to ask
Yeah.
you, what's coming up next for you?
Yeah.
So elevate her
Mhm.
and man, having the mother daughter come together or whatever capacity that looks like, right?
Right.
It could
You could
be,
be
it
aunt,
doesn't have to be
niece,
mother daughter, but
sisters, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just
Oh,
women,
I'm
young
gonna
women.
have to get the details on this because I have a goddaughter in New York and my bestie, and this could very well be something that we could maybe all do
Yes.
together.
That'd be
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it really is so beautiful, and to know that like a lot of the limitations and the oh no 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 that's don't say these things, don't do these things, a lot of those come from
Mm.
such a place of lack and from the conditioned beliefs and all of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So to put the, these different generations in a room together,
Mm.
remove all the judgment, have it be a completely
Yes.
open and safe and loving space to
Yes.
express, and how much you're going to learn from each other. Like I guarantee you're going to have women coming out of there saying these young minds just
They're so
blew my
brilliant.
mind.
They're brilliant. They are so
Yeah.
brilliant, and we live in a world where it's like we're constantly telling them to not speak their mind or be quiet or respect, and it's like, gosh, these babies have some voice, man, and
Yeah.
they have some wisdom even within themselves of what they go through. And I remember going to high school and it was nothing compared to like the stuff that my son comes home and he tells me. I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And I thought it was bad when I was in school, and I'm like, how like where are they releasing these
Yeah.
conversations, these emotions, and these things that they're experiencing? And it's gosh, I am so excited for 2024. I cannot
Ooh,
wait.
that's exciting.
Cannot
Do you
wait.
have any dates yet, or are you just getting the
So
concept in order?
I absolutely love fall. It is my favorite season, even though we really don't get that here in Florida. But I do. I absolutely love it. Summertime, obviously, we deal with hurricane season. So
Mm,
I am thinking more of end of year.
yeah.
October-ish is kind of like the month where I'm feeling it. That's the month that's been placed on my heart. So
Yeah.
um, we're working on some details, working with a few amazing like young teen entrepreneurs, business owners in the beauty industry and in the
Very
health and
cool.
wellness industry that are tailor made to like younger women, and just so that they have some cool swag goodies. And then of course,
Yes.
we gotta look out for ourselves too, for
Get some
the older
awesome
women.
swag. Yes. Oh man, so good. I love that you're doing that. I love that you're doing that. What a great concept. And it's going to be really transformative. Like that's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
really
excited.
pumped for you. So I'm going to put everything in the show notes for you guys to be able to connect with Jody. Like you're going to embracerelease.com. You can find all the goodies there. You can get access to her book there. Of course, you can connect with her on Instagram. I'll put her handle in the bottom of the show notes as well. And what else would you like to share with us before we sign off for today?
Oh my goodness. One, I just want to honor you. Like, thank you so much for what you're doing, and showing up for, us women. And I don't know if like all of your podcasts are surrounded by just women, but um
Mostly.
yeah. I love
Every
it.
now and then we get a guy that comes up and I'm like, hey, you're awesome. Let's go. Like, why not?
No, but I love it. I love it. And I actually watched like a few of your other episodes before we got on, and I'm like, man, this girl's amazing. She's killing it. Like I just love your energy. I love what you're doing. And I would have never known that you were still working like corporate America, girlfriend, because I was like, oh, this girl she is fire.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing that I really want people to know. Like, you don't have to be crazy special in any kind of way. Like, you just have to have the desire and the passion to do the thing that you want to do, whatever that is. And then you find support. You find a community of people that you can ask the right kind of questions to. You can find, community of women that are going through the same things. Like when I met Jody at the Power Retreat that Victoria Dume put on, like the group of women that I met there, I could not have even imagined being able to be in a space like that. And I met Victoria at the Faith Over Fear event a couple months
Oh,
prior and didn't
wow.
know her. She was a complete stranger to me. And we met and we had dinner and she was like, you should come to my retreat. It's in a couple months. And I was like, I'll be
Wow.
there. And it just,
Wow.
when you say yes and when you open yourself up to something that feels really good to you, even if you're not really sure the purpose or the why or the how or any of that, but you're like, this seems like a good idea. Like, I'm going to go for it. You never know what's on the other side. And that's where all of this has come from:
Yep.
podcasting, business, all the things. Like, and I still work a corporate job. Like, you can't have it all if you really want
Yeah,
it.
you really can. You really can. You just have to, like you said, you have to say yes, right? So like, thank
Mhm.
you for your yes, because you are doing phenomenal, phenomenal work. And oh my God, I just pray blessings upon you. I pray that like it just goes off like even higher than you've expected or could have even imagined. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
good.
thank
It's
you.
good.
Well, I'm so honored that you said yes and that you were able to be here with us. And what an incredible story. I know there are so many other women that have gone through, whether it be the BRCA diagnosis, whether it just be having a tough time because you're a mom, like feeling stuck in a job and not knowing what direction to go into. Like, you guys go get connected with Jody because she's got an amazing story and she's such a beautiful soul. I mean, come on,
Oh,
like,
thank you.
just, yeah. So thank you so much for being here. And
Thank
until next
you.
time, we'll see ya.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.